Bienvenue, Ani, welcome. When I was in elementary school, either grade 7 or 8, I never liked to do the planning part of writing assignments. Mostly, this was because as soon as the teacher gave us our topic, my head would already be full of what I wanted to write. I didn't want to stop to fill out an outline for what would make up my neat beginning, middle, and end. I just wanted to write it. Usually, I would write a quick rough draft and then fill out the outline retrospectively. Now, this method is all well and good when what you're trying to write is a short paragraph or two on a narrow topic chosen for you, but when you're trying to craft a story, taking a moment to make some kind of plan can be extremely helpful. Even if that plan only consists of making an easy to access list of character names and descriptions, or a quick bullet point list of events that you want to happen. Plans also should not be thought of as the poured concrete foundation of the story, but rather as a rough blueprint subject to change depending on what you encounter during the building process. As you write, you may find yourself discovering new characters and plot points that destroy ideas you thought you were going to include. For me, at least, a plan is more like a broad guideline that serves to keep some of my swirling thoughts mildly organized so that none of them fall completely out of my head. As I write, I make notes and update my plans as needed. When I look back at the original plan I had for a story or character, I'm often surprised by how different they are from the finished result. Before anything like a proper blueprint can be drawn, however, there are a few important decisions that have to be made, and that is what we are going to look at in this video. For this project, I'm going to use my lovely chart paper pad, but you can use anything for this step, from a color-coded and filtered Excel spreadsheet to scribbles on the back of a receipt you found crumpled up in your coat pocket. To start off the plan, I wrote down the parts of the story I already have, which in this case is the 6 characters: Button, Bobbin, Leaf, Moss, Zinnia, and Grand Dot. These characters can be divided into 3 types of character groups. The first 3 form the main friend group, the mainest of the main characters, as it were. Since these characters are all around the same age, and I decided during the character design phase that they were friends and that Button is the story's lead. Moss I categorized as older sibling because by nature of him being older, he's separated from the main group, but by nature of him being a sibling, he's still closely tied with the main group. This puts him in a position where he could either be a secondary character that helps the main 3 on their adventure, or he could be a main character filling the role of group guide, a character that knows at least a little bit more about the world than the main protagonist. The last group is the parents/guardians. They do not go on whatever the adventure is, but they represent home, what the characters are leaving when the adventure starts and hoping to come back to when the adventure is over. The relationships the main characters have with these ones and the lessons they have learned from them affect how the main characters will react to and feel about the plot. The next thing that I've got a little bit of information on is the setting. This has been briefly mentioned in a few of the character design videos as being, and I quote, some kind of magical forest or garden or meadow, etc., etc. The idea of plant-themed fairies and magical gardens made me think of those fairy garden kits you can buy, some of which are for gnomes. So I officially decided that Button and Company would be gnomes. In the interest of building out the setting a little, I also thought about what other kinds of creatures are often included in stories set in the general world of fairy gardens, and added anthropomorphic animals to the list, thinking of movies like Epic and Thumbelina, with their cast of talking animals interacting with the small, more human-looking characters. The setting and characters push the genre firmly in the direction of fantasy, so I wrote that down too. Genre is one of those labels that can at times seem simultaneously too broad and too narrow, but it's a useful tool if not taken too seriously. It can, for example, point you in the direction of similar stories and allow you to pull on common tropes and themes for some convenient shorthand storytelling, because when your audience can make connections to other stories they've heard, it can deepen their understanding of what you've written. Just remember that genre at the end of the day is a useful tool you can use and not a firm set of rules you have to follow. One of the biggest things to consider when writing a story is the audience. Writing a picture book for 4 to 5 year olds is very different from writing a 5 book series for adults. Your audience decides what kind of words you'll use and how many, as well as what subject matter you'll include and in what way. Based off of the look of the character designs, I've narrowed the possible age ranges down to children, preteen, and teen or young adult. I haven't fully decided which one I want to choose because I have a vague idea of what the story could look like for more than one of the options. But as other pieces of the puzzle fall into place, it will become clear which option makes the most sense. Additionally, not everything needs to be decided in this stage. As I said in the beginning, a plan is just a loose guideline to help organize your ideas. When considering what kind of story in which I want these characters to exist, it was clear from the start that it would be an adventure story, and that I wanted it to be some kind of quest. But I have a couple ideas about what that could look like. So I wrote the key question I've been asking myself down, even though I don't have an answer for it yet. Is this a serious quest or not? The answer to this question relies heavily on who the audience is. If it's a children's story, a serious adventure might be too complicated or frightening. If they are just pretending, it could be too childish for a preteen to enjoy. There's also the secret third option that it starts out as a game they are playing or an everyday task that they're pretending is a quest for fun, and then they get dragged into a more serious adventure. But again, this is a question that I'll have to roll around in my mind a bit longer before I can reach a decision. While that sits on the back burner, let's turn to consider what adventure means as a story style. Two of the main features of a typical adventure story are the adventuring party and the hero's journey. A common trope of character groups is called the five-man band, used for its balance of enough characters that there are almost endless character dynamic combinations to explore, but few enough characters that no one gets lost in the shuffle. Another famous adventuring group, the Fellowship of the Ring, had 9 members, which allowed the group to separate into several smaller groups to give the audience access to events taking place in different areas of the setting. And another common group dynamic is the 3-person friend group. Think Percy, Annabeth, and Grover in Book 1 of the Percy Jackson series. There is some overlap between this and the five-man band, as often the five-man band includes a core group of 3. When that thought came to mind, I realized that the characters I have almost fit that dynamic, with Button, Bobbin, and Leaf as the core 3. So I decided to choose the five-man band, which means that Moss will operate as a member of the group in a support role, and that I need another character to fill the 5th spot. The other common feature of adventure stories, the hero's journey, I'm not sure if I want to use yet, so I just outlined it, misspelled and in brief, so that I would remember that it was an option. It would provide the basic story structure of the characters leaving home, coming to a strange land, experiencing a darkest moment where it seems the quest might fail, the quest ending in some way or other, and a return home. You can do a lot of different things within this structure, but it's not the only way to tell a story. Thinking about the hero's journey, though, reminded me of another couple of questions I need to ask myself. What starts them on their quest? And what are the stakes? Again, these answers depend in part on the audience. With a lot of things to think over and at least one more character to create before anything can be decided, I ended my brainstorm with a short to-do list. I want to give the setting a name because that will help give it shape in my mind. Moss needs a friend because the common 3-2 split of a 5-man band means that it makes sense for the 5th member of the group to be connected to him in some way. And I need to actually decide on the audience because that one decision will answer several questions. This is something that developing the characters further will also help with, because the motivations, goals, and personalities of the characters play into what kind of story is told, which, in turn, will help determine who the story is for. I don't want to develop the characters much, however, without the full party present, so the second item on the to-do list will actually be tackled first. I hope you'll join me for the next video, where we'll meet Moss's friend.